Welcome to the Corrales Art Center's October 2021 Salon. Our topic this evening, Travels with My Cello, Encouraging Social Harmony in a Discordant World. And we're going to be joined by Corrales resident Janet Anthony. I'm Kathleen McCleery, and I'm a member of the Corrales Art Center's Salon Committee. And yes, you can see that we're coming to you via Zoom once again. So I want you to get ready for a really inspiring presentation this evening. But before we get started, let me thank our sponsors, Carol and Craig Levy of Corrales, for generously making today's presentation possible. Janet Anthony is the founder and executive director of BLUME Haiti. She founded the organization in 2012, and she now serves as its executive director. Janet was a professor of music at Lawrence University in Wisconsin, and in 1996, she saw an ad seeking volunteers for a music summer camp in Port-au-Prince. Well, she signed up, and that was the beginning of a 25-year dedication to the students and to the country. Janet grew to appreciate the students' passion for learning, and she returned to Haiti year after year, often bringing other musicians along with her and instruments to the island nation. Well, when an earthquake devastated Haiti back in 2010, Janet formed a nonprofit, and the reason was to help replace some of the destroyed instruments and to support music programs in Haiti. She also got some backing from Jimmy Buffett's Singing for Change Foundation. BLUME Haiti, though, does a whole lot more than give music lessons. They foster leadership, and they urge students to take on communication skills, and they foster civic collaboration, which often leads to economic development. So I'm going to leave it there and just say welcome, Janet. We're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much, Kate, and thank you to the Levys for sponsoring tonight's event, and to the Corrales Art Center, and to all of you for coming. Let me share my screen and put this in present mode, and we can get started. As Kate said in her very wonderful introduction, thank you so much. We started BLUME Haiti in 2012. We are approaching our 10th year, hence the 10th anniversary, the 10 in our logo. And we have helped generations. Well, I've been going to Haiti since 1996, so really generations of musicians have passed through my hands. Just a little bit about me, this won't take long. I started at Lawrence University in 1984, but before then, I'm from Tucson, Arizona. I spent 3 years studying in Vienna, which was amazing. I was on the 8-year plan for my bachelor's degree, so eventually I got my bachelor's degree and then came back to the States to do my master's at SUNY Stony Brook, and then went to Appleton from there. Fairly early on, I realized that music could be used as a very powerful tool for social justice and for change. And I've lived that experience in a number of different places alongside Haiti, including Curacao, as you see here, and also Sarajevo. I went to Sarajevo with a pianist friend a decade after the horrible Bosnian War. We played in the conservatory there, and they had actually memorialized a place in the wall of the concert hall where a missile had gone through the wall. There I met Fra Ivo, brother Ivo, who founded the Pontanima Choir. Pontanima is a bridge to the soul. This was amazing, very inspiring to me, because it brought together all of the three major religious faiths in the area to sing together, to make music together, to create community. So there were Orthodox Serbs, there were Muslims, and there were Jews all singing together. Quite inspiring. Let's see, why can't I go through? Here we go. Yes, so I started in 2012, the same year that BLUME began, bringing Haitian students to study as non-degree seeking students at the university. These were all key players, as it were, in their home communities, important teachers, important students who would become teachers. And then with a number of my former students who had started going with me to Haiti many years earlier as a result of the devastating 2010 earthquake, we formed BLUME Haiti, as I was a co-founder to that. I retired from Lawrence in 2017, and I always knew that I did not want to stay in the frigid Midwest. It's really cold in the winters, but you can't go home. So instead of Tucson, I landed here in Corrales, and with my sister, we built a house together, and we just love it here. So I won't read through our mission statement, but one of the, or our vision or our values, one of the things that surprised me actually was the amount of civic collaboration and economic development that could be created through the study of music and through music education. So BLUME Haiti, as we've mentioned, was founded in 2012. We're headquartered in the US. We have never, ever met all together. All of our meetings have been via, at first it was Google Hangouts and then Slack and now Zoom. So when we have our 5 board meetings a year, it always happens online. We are pursuing recognition by the Haitian government and hope that that will be forthcoming in a year or so. We have a 14-member board of directors, and that includes 4 Haitian-born colleagues on that board, and most of the board members have taught in Haiti at one time or another. Once things calm down there, one of the things we will encourage all of our board members to do is to go to Haiti at one point during their board service. It makes a huge difference when you're on the ground and seeing with your own eyes the impact that these programs have on the lives of children. As Kate mentioned, we were able to get our start thanks to Jimmy Buffett and his foundation. We rely 100% on contributed revenue, and about 80% of that is from individual donors. So why music, and why music in Haiti? 2 of my former students, when they were undergrads at Lawrence University, they had both gone to Haiti with me before and were incredibly moved by what they saw and incredibly inspired. And they wound up making this wonderful film called Kimbela Hold On. And at the end, I can put a link in the chat. It's about an 80-minute movie about the impact of music education in Haiti, both pre and post-earthquake. In fact, they have some of the very last shots that were taken of Haiti's only concert hall, which was destroyed. So here's Makelda, a fine clarinetist, my theory student, my composition student. He's a fine composer as well.
Musique en Haïti, t'es qu'à changer pays à son plan social parce que les musiciens m'chita beaucoup tôt, m'a joué. C'est pas question de Belgrade ou sou qui intéresse. C'est pas question de parfum ou mettre sou qui intéresse. C'est focus dans son affaire. N'a joué ensemble, n'a communiqué ensemble. Et là sur mon plan musicien dans même rang social, moi ka chita dans même niveau avant, moi ka chita dans même côté à performer avant. Je capable, même si je ne suis pas riche, je suis tirade qui est propre, et puis je connais faire musique, et puis je ça, ils ont invité à aller performer au Palais National, à l'ambassade de France, et rencontrer tel monde. Même si, matin ça, c'était... Moi j'ai mis, si matin, si je pas pile rad. Mais jour ça, ou pas faut qu'on est si me pauvre si me bagaille. Ou est un musicien qui devant.
So this is something that
Musique.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, in Haiti is incredibly important. Music is a great equalizer. People from all different social classes can study music. And as Makelder says, it doesn't really matter if you're poor, if you didn't eat well that morning, if you don't have a lot of clothes, if you don't have a fine perfume, you're a musician and you can relate to people as equals. The other thing that program directors talk about all the time is the need to orient kids in a way that's positive and hopeful and optimistic, and to give them a fiddle or a trumpet or a flute as opposed to a weapon. And this is especially important now. Lano, who you see here, is our very first program manager. For many years, he directed programs in one of Haiti's worst slums. It's called Cité Soleil, City of the Sun. And this was a center, vocational center for nonviolence. The skills that the kids learn impact their entire lives and impact the lives of their families as well. So here is Lano talking about the school, which no longer exists, unfortunately.
La zone côté nous là, c'est Simon. C'est une zone qui collée à Cité Soleil. Mais l'école là, c'est vraiment pour Cité Soleil. C'est objectif pour nous réduire la violence dans Cité Soleil qu'elle était créée. Puis gros embranchement qui gagne ici, c'est une question de droits humains. Ils ont formé les gens, ils ont montré qu'ils doivent qu'ils gagnent. Ils ont droit pour manger, droit pour aller à l'école, droit pour gagner la santé, droit pour apprendre. Et pendant qu'on a montré les droits, nous montré la musique, nous montré l'informatique, les mouvements des femmes, tout. Ils parlent avec les femmes, ils fait les femmes connaître les droits. Parce qu'en pile fois, ils font violence sur la femme. Mais ici, là, ils montré les femmes comment pour nous respecter, pour faire nous respecter. Et moi-même, c'est plus que moi, c'est mon Cité Soleil. Et moi, je toute énergie, moi, avec tout cœur, moi, sans me pas toucher. C'est bénévolement du travail, parce que ça a fait, c'est bénévole, pas de monde qui touche. Nous voulons aider et nous baillons tête, nous baillons vie, nous baillons force pour nous aider tout le monde qui t'a aimé apprendre la musique. Nous avons envie d'utiliser la musique pour nous remplacer les âmes par la musique. Parce qu'il y a un pile jeune dans la Cité Soleil qui ont utilisé les armes à feu pour faire violence. Mais nous pensons qu'avec la musique, nous avons fait un changement, un grand changement.
So this is something that almost every program director I speak with tells me, that it's a way to keep kids out of gangs, out of prostitution, out of drug rental. Sorry, there we go. Out of the criminal and delinquent behavior. The parents understand this for the most part as well and are very appreciative. So what does BLUME Haiti do? I love this picture of these three young girls playing the French horn. We do a lot of work with professional development, working with teachers and advanced students to help create a very knowledgeable, well-connected and caring workforce in terms of the music education sector in Haiti. So there are a lot of pedagogy workshops and seminars that we're doing now online and have been doing online since March, well, actually April of 2020. We support Haitian composers through commissions and their own personal development with theory classes and things like that and performances. And we either online or in person, we give access to international and national experts. So here you see Deborah with a young student. We sent Deborah to Chicago for a number of weeks where she completed Every Child Can in Suzuki Book 1. She worked with one of our board members who was a master teacher. And she has since returned to Haiti. This was several years ago. She's become head of the wind department at Haiti's oldest music school based in Port-au-Prince and has had a terrific impact. So this is the kind of professional development we like to do, but either in country or out of country with key players in the field. We also do a lot of work supporting students through tuition assistance at their music schools, a lot of scholarships for summer camps. Before the pandemic, we were spending about $20,000 a year on scholarships, which permitted about 200 kids to get to one music camp or another and various special programs. Some very gifted kids will send abroad to study. We've sent folks to France and to the United States. We also create national workshops and seminars that are open to young musicians throughout the country. One aspect of this, there's a French word called rester avec, and in Creole it's pronounced as reste avec, which means to stay with. These are youngsters in essentially indentured servitude. They're sent by their families. Usually they come from the countryside. The families hope that they're going to be placed with a family that's loving and supportive and so on and so forth. But mainly these young kids are treated horribly. Legally, they're supposed to be sent to school. That doesn't happen a lot of the time. They're abused physically and emotionally frequently. There's a school in the mountains above Port-au-Prince in a place called Carrefour that has a program specifically for reste avec kids. And that's the picture that you're seeing here. All of these young folks are in those kinds of situations. They have an active summer camp program, and during the year they offer vocational training and in the summer music theater and arts in general. So this is something that gives these kids different options for their lives. A number have participated in the instrument repair programs that you'll find out more about in a moment. And this gives them the possibility to actually earn their living. In terms of our partner development, we offer supplementary salary support for about 80 people now. A lot of logistical support for schools and for camps. We transport teachers and students from sometimes from one camp to the other. We have a grant program for instrument supplies and music. We accept donations from sponsors and supporters, really from, well, I was going to say from around the world, from Latin America, North America, and from Europe. And so here you see, this was a fabulous donation of a bunch of cellos. I'm a cellist, so that must be why I chose this photograph. And then on the right, you see the finished product. This is before we learned to use pallet boxes, which made a huge difference. Yeah, we're a small all-volunteer organization. There's a lot of stuff that we learn as we do. Most of our affiliated programs have summer camps, and this is the ideal opportunity for us to hold seminars and workshops. You see on the right, we had a fantastic pedagogy seminar with a Venezuelan teacher, Armando, and this was how to teach the 3 to 5 year old set string instruments. So we had violin and we had cello. They gave the most adorable concert at the end of the camp. We made a ton of progress in the time that they were there, and we brought 15 string teachers from around the country to participate in this seminar. But as you can see on the left, in recent years, we've had master faculty from Denmark, from Germany, from France, from Spain, Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, and across the United States. What I find is that the experience of teaching in Haiti for people frequently is life-changing. And just seeing the desire, the determination, the devotion of these youngsters and their teachers to what they're doing, it's very inspiring. So summer camps last between 1 and 3 weeks. And throughout the country, it's a mix of residential and day programs. We, international faculty tend to go to residential programs with more access to kids. With night rehearsals, you can get a lot done. And as I mentioned before, this is a fabulous opportunity for in-depth seminars and workshops. So this is a concert at the State University of Haiti in a place called Lemonade in the north. With, you notice, a Haitian conductor. We really try to support and uplift Haitian master teachers and musicians. Lots of other things happen in summer camps, as you can see on the left. We don't have chalkboards at a lot of places, so we'll use the gate. This is the music theory class, and as I just mentioned, we do try to uplift Haitian conductors and composers and teachers and give them the opportunity to shine. So here's Chupi conducting at one of the camp concerts outdoors in front of the cathedral. In summer camps also, we've had an amazing affiliation with an organization called Luthiers Without Borders. You know, there's Everything Without Borders, and also they're Luthiers Without Borders. Luthiers are string instrument makers and repairers. And their first visit was to Haiti in 2008. I was able to bring in, this was even before BLUME Haiti was founded, but we had students for the luthiers from 5 or 6 different schools. And the director, who was the vice principal at that time of the Newark School of Violin Making, one of the premier schools to learn how to make violins in the world, he was really taken by Haiti. He came back 4 times, and then by the time he was done, a number of his students carried the torch. And it's amazing. There are now 4 fully professional luthiers in Haiti, of all places, which is quite astounding. And most programs that have string instruments have somebody around who can maintain their stock of instruments, which really makes it sustainable. So we also produce a number of special initiatives, both with national impact and with local impact. The Haitian Orchestra Institute, you'll learn a little bit more about. I'll go into somewhat more detail about the repair programs. I've mentioned already that we've hired a program manager, also a bandagement repair technician. And once things calm down, we've got a number of backers for an international concert series in Port-au-Prince and a campus. So the Haitian Orchestra Institute really is quite extraordinary. I do auditions, I hold auditions, I travel throughout the country and pick about 100 of Haiti's best trained, most developed, most enthusiastic, classically trained musicians. And we bring them together in partnership with the musicians of the Utah Symphony, including their maestro, Thierry Fichot, who actually grew up in what was then called Rhodesia and is a French speaker. He's Swiss, and this project is near and dear to his heart. Because of the collaboration with the Utah Symphony people, we're able to offer this program for absolutely no charge, no fee. That includes transportation to and from wherever the program site is, and it includes all meals and things like that. So here's we'll see about 4.5 minutes of this video.
Music's one of those undefinable forces that really unites everything.
Music was my soul. I don't know, I feel it in my heart, just in me.
Music helped me a lot. It's like a therapy. When I'm playing music, it incites me to learn more.
Each day, every day, I feel like music is more and more important for me. And now I can't stop it.
In a country like the United States, we have the resources to be able to follow our passion. That isn't always the case in a country like Haiti.
When you see somebody who's dedicated and driven and talented, they should be able to, pursue that.
Music is really a doorway for so many people to a world that they would never have access to otherwise.
Haitians have art in their blood, so they love to express themselves. And music is becoming more and more central into really not only appeasing minds around the country, but also a great provider for opportunities as well.
This is wonderful to have so professional people who work with us. It's an opportunity, it's a gift, because here in Haiti, most of our school don't have a teacher.
I enjoy a lot. I'm so happy to be here because I'm playing music. I'm a musician.
We are not usually play in an orchestra, but now we feel like we are professional. Like we are playing like professional with Jerry Fisher.
It's remarkable what these students do on their own. Oftentimes they're self-taught.
These young people, they're still in the kind of formative stages of their technique and their musicality. So it's an intense week for them.
At the moment, it's a real challenge to do more than just playing the notes. So that's where we arrive, and that's where we can make them relax and tell them why the collective is important.
The language barrier is a bit of a challenge. You do a lot of gesturing, a lot of singing, a lot of demonstrating.
The biggest challenge for them is having instruments that really work properly. And if you don't have keys that go up and down on your flute, you're gonna have some real struggles.
Our goal is to have an impact on music education on a national level, teaching them not only how to play better, but also how to teach better.
It's time for me to learn new things and to take that experiences and to share that experiences with my student when I come back.
What is technical excellence compared to the beauty of them wanting to aim for that? And that is the most important, is their desire to be better through music.
What's been wonderful about this project is that it was and remains a musician-initiated project.
I'm incredibly impressed by the Utah Symphony musicians. It really means a lot as their music director to see that they are so genuinely committed in this notion of sharing.
I hope to have a better life with music. This is my dream.
Knowing that they're part of something that is giving a positive image for Haiti, something that they can be proud of. It means a lot for them to be here.
Oh, so that was abrupt. My apologies. I didn't mean to do that. But yeah, this is a fantastic initiative. And has, even though we've only been able to do it twice, as you can see here on this slide, 2017, we had 20 programs represented, the next year 24, 2019, really about 3 weeks before the Utah people were supposed to come, and I had almost finished auditions. We had to cancel the program because of what they call in Haiti, pays loc. The country was locked down because of political unrest. In 2020, I had done 130 auditions, but on March 11th, I think it was, the pandemic was declared, and so I left the country the next day. Unfortunately, we had to cancel the 2020 edition of this. 2021. Also was canceled, and I wasn't able to go to hold auditions. My fingers are crossed that we'll be able to do this next March, and April. We do this during the relief week for the Utah Symphony, which is also sort of remarkable. These people are so committed to the project that they have a 6-month period of playing, concerts every week, and they give up their one relief week to go to Haiti. So for me, that speaks volumes about their commitment and dedication. Another one of our special initiatives is instrument repair. And for string instruments, this started during the summer camps, as you saw with the organization called Luthiers Without Borders. Chupi is an astounding person, actually. He developed a way to repair this bass that the European luthiers found ingenious. They felt they would not have come up with this method themselves. Using the black strips there are inner tubes from a bicycle, or maybe from several bicycles. So very creative. You have to be creative. You have to be what the French call a bricoleur, sort of able to piece things together with the resources that you have. So our string instrument repair program is going great guns. And now, thanks to the Rotary Club of Naperville, we are trying to do the same thing and support band instrument repair programs. We've hired a technician. This is Hérode Jean-Pierre in his workshop, and he has been traveling the country to do, eventually he'll do 3 or 4 modules of band instrument repair sessions. So there'll be a beginning, intermediate, and advanced, and then a module devoted to oddball instruments like oboe and bassoon. Very few programs in the country actually have those instruments, but almost everyone has a saxophone somewhere. So as you can see, they're very focused on learning how to repair these instruments. And for these young people, this will be a life changer. They'll be able to earn their living repairing these instruments. So far, he's worked with over 50 students from more than 25 music programs. He's been, we've had 2 sessions in Port-au-Prince and 2 outside of Port-au-Prince. And unfortunately, we're deciding in the next couple of days whether we need to pause this because of the political unrest and the violence. We can't send him someplace where both he and his students might be in danger. But eventually, this project will have a huge impact on the sustainability of music programs across the country. We also deal with health and welfare assistance through a variety of formats, in a variety of formats. Last year, during the pandemic, we supplied oil, cooking oil, canned fish, rice and beans and soap to the most vulnerable students in most of our music programs. Almost 400 families got food assistance. Each school identified their 10 most vulnerable students. And this year, some of you might be aware that there was a 7.2 magnitude earthquake that was closely followed by a tropical storm in the southern part of Haiti. School was delayed, and we did a fundraising campaign to enable, I think it's about 250 kids to get either backpacks, the school kits with backpacks, notebooks, pencil sharpeners, pencils, pens, things of that nature. And then another set of children will get their school books paid for. So I had no idea that pencils were so valuable until 6 or 7 years ago when I was talking with a Haitian American who said, no, families really struggle to provide these basic necessities for their kids to go to school. So we were delighted to be able to help. We've also made cash payments to about 150 teachers, especially those in the impacted area, and have given them complete self-determination in how they spend this. And they know best what their families need. So we were also very happy to be able to do that thanks to a generous donor. And it's something that, again, was amazing in the earthquake impacted zone. several schools held summer camps, music camps that allowed their students to focus on something very positive as opposed to the difficulties of dealing with the earthquake. So we support 51 programs now in 9 of Haiti's 10 departments. This map isn't quite up to date. They range, there's an incredible diversity from urban to rural, from some that have been around since the late 50s to others that are brand new. Most are instrumental classical music based, but a number have choir programs, and we definitely support jazz and the traditional music, drumming, folklore, all those kinds of things. Roots music, I guess they call it. So I'm not going to go to the map, but you can see there's a cluster of schools in Port-au-Prince. We do our best to avoid what is called not only the République of Port-au-Prince, but also Port-au-Prince as a republic of non-governmental organizations. So we definitely want to get out of the capital as well. And someday we'll get to this department that we're not in yet, that 10th department. But we don't have any music schools per se. We don't own any buildings. We don't run any programs. We're approached by people on the ground who have the desire and the determination to put a music program in place for their community, and that is where we help. So our impact, we've got 51 partner programs. Those serve about 5,000 students annually, and as I mentioned, we're in 9 of Haiti's 10 departments. What we have found, music education is so important on so many levels, and a lot of that has nothing to do with music. The kids learn how to work together. We know from a lot of research in this country, and I think the same holds true in Haiti, that kids who are involved in band, orchestra, and choir programs tend to have more focus and do better academically in school. And I also know from talking with so many people that music is an extraordinarily powerful antidote to despair. A number of the folks who came out of Cité Soleil, we saw that video earlier, have told me, not just from that area, which is quite depressed, but a lot of people tell me over and over again that music has saved their lives, whether they go on in music or not. So these numbers aren't quite up to date, but it gives you an idea of the number of people who've been involved in our programs. We do a lot of, this goes back to what our activities are, and in terms of professional development, student development, partner development, all of those kinds of things to help build capacity throughout the country. And the other thing that we realize is that, BLUME Haiti stands for Building Leaders Using Music Education. And leadership is something that develops so beautifully in so many people. It's something that's quite moving for me as well. For example, Julio here, he has MS. He's become a leader in his community through music. He's able to help support his family, which means so much to him. Because of music. He's got a big class of cellists at his school and is quite well respected in the community for his courage in the face of all of his disabilities and what he's able to do in spite of all of that. So we work to really create a sustainable and resilient music ecosystem throughout the country. So we're coming to the end, but I want to share a few more videos. Bernadette was one of the few women serving in a leadership role in music programs in Haiti, and this is her take on why music is important.
Et li change la vie en pile monde parce que en pile monde qui là professeur Kounien qui a fait musique qui gagne pile responsabilité Kounien, il était commencé en bas. Et il était un peu de monde qui a un problème social, mais grâce à cette unité, grâce à la musique, comme si la vie a changé, ou pas senti frustration encore. comme si tout le monde figure un petit gens puis rayonnant, puis joyeux, puis les capables font pile bagay. Et c'est une raison qui fait moi involve en pile vle pour ça marcher son défi pour moi, mais la bon pile pour pays d'abord, la bon pile pour étimonio personnellement pour progrès personnel qu'il a fait, puis tout la bon pour l'école là, tout le monde a fait musique. Moi c'est musique, moi c'est ça qu'on se dit.
Yes, so the shots you see in the building are some of the last photographs taken of the Holy Trinity Music School before it collapsed totally and completely in the earthquake. And we're glad that we've got that footage available. So a couple of our more recent activities, as mentioned earlier, we were involved in relief efforts after the earthquake and tropical storm. We have a number of international partners in addition to our local partners. The Global Leaders Program is one of them. I've placed Global Leaders artist teachers since 2015 across Haiti to teach and to work with people for anywhere between 1 and 3 or 4 weeks. And now we're working more with people who have a lot of experience in arts management and school management and things like that to help program directors and teachers who might want to strike out on their own to give them sort of the tools to be able to do that. We've hired our first 2 employees informally for the time being because we're not yet recognized by the government, but hopefully that will change soon. We offer a lot of online courses, and all of that is continuing. Let's see here.
Wow.
I imagine that a number of you have heard about the recent kidnapping of 16 Americans, 1 Canadian, and a Haitian driver, missionaries on the outskirts of Port-au-Prince. This is something that Haitians deal with on a daily basis. And these gangs that are operating now, it's really horrific. They'll take anybody from a market woman on up to a priest or a pastor officiating at a church service. There was a brazen kidnapping when people walked into a church. Sometimes they kill their victims, sometimes they let them go. Port-au-Prince is about 40% controlled by gangs now. The federal government is seemingly unable to do anything about that. But in spite of that, music programs are functioning. And as I said earlier, I think this is an incredibly powerful response to despair and response to these very, very challenging circumstances. So we know from experience that music can completely change the life of a youngster in very difficult circumstances, and we're trying to build on that throughout Haiti. So this is a video that was taken earlier today outside of Port-au-Prince, not too far away from the capital. These are beginning students. They learned how to read notes yesterday. Oh, whoops, hold on. This is what I need to do.
3, 4.
Discordant, but as I said, they've been playing for only a couple days and they learned how to read music yesterday, so they're doing great. Notice their school building has tin walls. These are kids from an area that they don't have a lot of opportunities, but still their parents want to send them to school. Education is so important to Haitian families, and adding music to that brings an additional layer that also is super important. So looking to the future, we want to continue to build capacity throughout Haiti. I really want to get into that 10th department. I need to find people who have started a music program there who are interested in doing that. Because the human resources exist in Haiti already, eventually we hope to have a national vocational school of instrument repair. And I think given the resources, human resources that are there, this could become the go-to place in the entire Caribbean for learning how to repair string instruments, how to repair band instruments, and with our partner, the Music Fund, which is based in Belgium, piano as well. We'll start, hopefully, depending on the situation in the country, in December with a 10-day seminar on piano repair that will involve a Belgian master technician, and we'll bring in students from all over the country to participate in that. As I mentioned earlier, also, we hope to initiate a concert series, international concert series. That won't happen, though, until the political situation evolves. We have a partnership with the Now Institute to build a campus in the north of Haiti. This is where the vocational school would be, also where a concert hall would be, a workshop for instrument repair, dormitories. We can hold all of our activities, or any activities that we want there, which will be incredibly helpful. So, merci en pile. Thank you so much. And I will stop my screen sharing. If you have any questions, I'd be so happy to hear from you.
And Janet, thank you so much. I think this is has been such a dark year for Haiti. You mentioned a lot of it, the natural disasters, the political upheaval, and of course, the recent violence with the kidnappings. And yet you've really given us some bright light, something to make us feel good. And I really appreciate that. I also think that a lot of us look at music as something that is entertainment for us personally. And you've given us another definition of that. And you've given it to us in your title. I meant to ask you to spell out what BLUME stands for, and you did, building leaders using music education. So I really thank you for those insights. I'm hoping that I'm going to start seeing some questions in the chat function. I don't see any yet, but I guess I'm going to start with one then. You mentioned that I think it was the earthquake destroyed the concert hall. So where is this orchestra playing right now?
So the concert hall was part of the Holy Trinity Music School, where the Philharmonic Orchestra of Holy Trinity would perform. Since its destruction, Port-au-Prince has no concert hall. So the other places that were sometimes used in that for that function were also destroyed in the earthquake. The Haitian Orchestra Institute, the first year we were in Jacmel, which is on the southern coast, a fabulous city, one of my favorites, with a very good music school. And after the 2010 earthquake, the cathedral in Jacmel was heavily damaged. And the Catholic Church built what they call a salle polyvalent, which is used for church services, but also for other things. And that's where we performed in Jacmel. And then in Cap Haitian, we played in a Baptist church, a very gaudy building, but we had about 1,200 people in attendance, 800 or 900 in the church itself, and then another 300 or 400 watching the old-fashioned big TVs downstairs. It was simulcast or something like that, which is what they do for their church services. So we're hoping that this campus in the north could be a permanent home for the Haitian Orchestra Institute, and also for touring ensembles and all of that kind of thing. We've got plans already from the Now Institute. It's gorgeous and earthquake resistant and hurricane resistant. So those things are important.
I wish you the best with all of that. Tell us just a little bit more about the Utah Symphony, because I'm fascinated with what's happening there, but also why. What was it that made either you go to the Utah Symphony or them to come to you? What was the reason?
Well, so one of my colleagues in my student days studied with the same teacher as me. We didn't study at the same time, with a fabulous Russian cellist, Raya Garbasova. And John Eckstein grew up 20 minutes from Lawrence University, where I taught for all those years, and wound up going to East Bend to school and landing a job in the Utah Symphony. He would come back all the time to visit his parents. And once we realized that we had the same teacher in common for the last 20 or so years, he would borrow a cello, one of the university cellos. And of course, he'd take me out to lunch, or we'd have coffee, or I'd go to his house and chat with his folks. I talk about Haiti probably too much, and he became intrigued. And he and his partner and an oboist from the orchestra, she's a violinist in the orchestra, came to Haiti in 2016. They had a miserable time. I thought they would never come back. But not, a few months afterwards, processed, he said, what can we do to help advance the work that's going on there? And what he came up with was this Orchestra Institute with Utah musicians. His colleagues have been incredibly supportive. Their music director, Thierry Fischer, has been incredibly supportive. They do the bulk of the fundraising. And what BLUME Haiti does, what I do, is I get the orchestra together and I organize the location and those kinds of things, transportation, both for the Utah people and for the Haitian musicians. So that's how all that came about.
I'm going to go on and just ask you another question about what's happening now. So the current unrest, how does that affect you and your plans to go to Haiti again? I mean, are you frightened to go back at this point?
Well, I would not go to Port-au-Prince at the moment at all. I am contemplating going to Cap Haitien. COVID has been very odd in Haiti. This is its third wave. The first wave was very short. The second wave was in May and June and didn't last long. And they're in the midst of their third phase now. So that obviously I need to be careful, both in terms of bringing something to people there or bringing something back to people here. I don't want to do that. The North doesn't have anywhere near the same amount of unrest as the rest of the country. So I'm waiting to see. I'll rely on our partner programs in the North. If they say don't come, I don't want to put anyone at risk having to, pick me up at the airport or whatever. So that there's a question mark for the time being. And unfortunately, our instrument repair seminars have had to, they'll probably stop. We'll decide that in the next couple of days.
Yeah, it's a difficult time for everybody, but it seems like more difficult perhaps in Haiti. I'm wondering, since you've had so many students over the years in Haiti, are there, you must have lots of stories to tell. I'm wondering if there's one or two that you'd like to highlight and tell us about.
Well, there are a lot that can be told for sure. But what keeps me going back there is that the adults, the children, the teachers, the parents, the students, their devotion to this in the face of extraordinary obstacles is humbling for me and inspiring for me, and I'm not sure I could do what they do every day. I'm fortunate in that I can leave Haiti. I don't live there, but I have a sense of what life is like there because I have spent a lot of time in the country. And so for me, that's always the most inspiring thing. But, as I said, Haitians are great bricoleurs. They'll create things with the materials that they have, and often in ways that, people with access to more resources can't imagine. It's something that when doctors go to Haiti to teach or to work with their Haitian colleagues, it's something that people almost always will warn them about. Folks in Haiti will do things differently because they don't have access to all of the great resources that we have in this country. But there's a lot you can learn from working with your Haitian colleagues. And it's the same thing, I think, in all fields. Another reason, this is a very recent story. One of my cello students, Ementero, was accepted into something called the Orchestra of the Americas, their virtual academy. He's one of only 3 Haitians ever to be accepted into that. There were 60 people who were accepted out of over 2,000 who applied, representing 37, 38 countries, something like that. And that was a phenomenal experience, which I got to live vicariously because his English isn't great. So I did a lot of translation, but there are people with remarkable talent everywhere, and in Haiti too.
So kind of a corollary to that, though, I mean, that's a wonderful story, but have there also been some big disappointments along the way?
Well, for us, I don't judge people at all because I have a sense of how hard it is to live in Haiti. And I know lots of people want to leave. And I have incredible respect and admiration for people who say, no, we're going to stay and we're going to work to make our country better. But a lot of, some of our very fine students wind up leaving to go to school, and more often than not, it's very rare for people who are able to get a degree outside of the country for them to come back home. And I understand that, of course, but that's it always makes me feel a little bit sad that their talents and their gifts are then lost in general to the country. The brain drain is a huge problem, and at the same time, you can totally understand.
If you're intrigued and you want to learn just a little bit more about BLUME Haiti, you can go to the website. It's very easy to remember, bloomhaiti.org. So you just have to remember building leaders using music education. And you see the website down at the bottom. And then also you can contact Janet directly using her email, janet@bloomhaiti.org. And particularly if you're interested in learning more about the program, perhaps supporting it in some way, or just perhaps you want to see some of those videos, she can send you links to some of the videos. We just saw segments of them and we didn't see the whole thing. And you can see the whole thing. So thank you so much. Before we end, I do want to thank the members of our Salon Committee, and that would be Sandy Ben, Deborah Blank, Pat DeVivi, Pamina Deutsch, and Charlene Spiegel. And I also want to give another shout out to Carol and Craig Levy. We really, really appreciate your sponsorship. And I know you wanted to host this in your home, but we will get there eventually. And please know that this conversation is going to be posted soon on the Corrales Art Center's YouTube channel. This is the last salon of 2021. But 2022 is completely booked. And I want to just take a minute here to give you a quick preview. In January, Sarah Solovich, the editor of Searchlight New Mexico, will tell us about her nonprofit, nonpartisan investigative team that searches out truth and reports it. In March, sculptor Roxanne Swensel of Santa Clara Pueblo will describe her seed bank, an effort to save native crops. In April, IDEUM CEO Jim Spadassini will invite us to tour his facility right here in Corrales and explain the interactive displays that his team creates for museums all around the country. In May, Bruce Phillips of the Roadrunner region of the Porsche Club of America is going to tell us about his 16 cars that span many, many years of production. Later in the year, award-winning novelist and songwriter Jim Jones is going to treat us to his stories, his music, and his love of the West. And we are planning a trip to Vera Winery to get insights on the history of winemaking in New Mexico from Laurent Gruet, and, of course, to taste his wines. So that's it for the October 2021 Salon, and for the 2021 year for the Corrales Art Center's salons. Thank you to Janet Anthony, and thanks so much to all of you for watching.
Thank you.